Bluter reveals the two biggest challenges of coaching Caitlin Clark. Former Iowa Hawkeyes head coach Lisa Bluter got real about the reality of
Bluter's final insights may be the most revealing of all. She described Clark as a player so talented that she could dominate games without much help at lower levels. But college basketball is different. Everyone is elite. Individual brilliance alone isn't enough. You have to elevate others. For someone who had been the best player on every team since childhood, that required a massive mindset shift. And COVID only made it harder. Without normal team bonding, leadership development became even more challenging. Yet Clark figured it out. The second major challenge came at the opposite end of her college career. By her senior year, the chaos surrounding Caitlin Clark was relentless. Media requests, sponsorship deals, public appearances, fans, critics, haters, the spotlight never turned off. Bluter said she was stunned by how Clark handled it all without developing an ego. Despite becoming a national icon, Clark remained grounded. She didn't become uncoachable. She didn't distance herself from teammates. She stayed the same person. That's rare. Fame breaks most young athletes, either through pressure or arrogance. Clark avoided both. Bluter even revealed that they still text during games, proving their bond didn't end when Clark turned pro. She also shared how much effort went into protecting Clark's mental health amid constant praise and criticism. At just 22 years old, Clark carried the weight of an entire sport, and somehow, she handled it with maturity beyond her years. And that might be the most impressive part of her story.
Remember that less than 2 years ago, Caitlin Clark was still playing college basketball at the University of Iowa. Given all that Clark has already experienced, hold on, let me make sure my mic is right. Okay, we good. Has already experienced and accomplished in the WNBA since that time. Her iconic college career feels like ages ago, although it's impossible not to think back upon these days fondly when number 22 was setting NCAA records and leading the...
Lisa Bluter's return to the headlines wasn't subtle, and she clearly came prepared to tell the truth. In her recent interview with the Gazette, Bluter spoke openly about the realities of coaching Caitlin Clark, and some of what she shared completely contradicts public perception. According to Bluter, coaching the biggest superstar in college basketball came with challenges that most people never considered. For the outside, it looked like a dream scenario. But behind the scenes, there were serious obstacles that required constant attention. Bluter identified two major challenges that defined her experience coaching Clark, and both are surprising for very different reasons. The first challenge emerged early in Clark's college career, right in the middle of the COVID era. Empty arenas, lockdowns, isolation, no normal team bonding, no shared routines. Everything that typically helps players connect was stripped away. And in that environment, building chemistry wasn't just difficult, it felt almost impossible. Bluter explained that one of the biggest issues during that time was leadership development. Getting Clark to step into a true leadership role wasn't automatic. And that revelation alone is shocking, because when people think of Caitlin Clark, leadership seems obvious. But Bluter says it wasn't that simple. Clark was used to carrying teams through individual brilliance. She could score at will. She could control games on her own. But leadership at the college level requires more than talent. It requires trust, communication, and emotional connection, all of which were incredibly hard to develop during COVID restrictions. Trying to teach leadership while everyone was physically separated added an entirely new layer of difficulty. There were no natural moments for bonding, no casual interactions, no organic trust building. Everything had to be intentional. Bluter emphasized how strange and frustrating that period was, especially for a young star trying to find her voice. And yet, that challenge became a turning point. What initially seemed like a weakness eventually became one of Clark's greatest strengths, but only after time, patience, and deliberate effort.
And there's the question is, what was the biggest challenge in coaching Caitlin Clark? And the answer, two aspects really. First, during COVID, there was nobody in the stands. It was hard to build relationships because of the isolation. To get her to become a good leader, it took time because she was so used to doing everything on her own, but she learned it really well. You know, that's something that has been emphasized quite a bit by her and both Jan Jensen. And then the second point says, second, at the end of her career, there was so much noise. All the people that wanted a piece of her, I'm amazed how she handled it. She didn't get a big head. She was still a goofy kid.
After leading Iowa to back-to-back national championship appearances, Lisa Bluter largely stepped away from the spotlight. Once Caitlin Clark's college career came to an end, Bluter handed the program over to her longtime assistant, Jan Jensen, and quietly faded into the background. For someone who had been at the center of one of the most electric eras in women's basketball history, her absence was noticeable. Sure, Bluter still shows up from time to time. She attends games, makes occasional public appearances, and does some commentary work for the Big Ten Network. But compared to the chaos and attention of the Clark years, her presence has been minimal. And honestly, that makes sense. Those seasons weren't just busy, they were overwhelming. During that stretch, Iowa women's basketball wasn't just popular. It was must-watch television. Every game felt massive. Every matchup carried championship-level intensity. Arenas were packed. Ratings were exploding. Caitlin Clark had turned the program into a national event, and Blooder was right at the center of it all. That level of attention doesn't just disappear when the season ends. It follows you. It drains you. And after years of carrying that pressure, it's no surprise that Blooder chose to step back and let the next chapter begin without her at the forefront. But now she's back in the headlines, and this time she's not holding anything back. In a recent interview, Blooder finally opened up about what those years were truly like. And instead of polished talking points or safe answers, she delivered raw honesty. The kind that makes people uncomfortable because it challenges the story they've been telling themselves. What makes this moment significant is the timing. Enough distance has passed that Blooder can speak freely. Clark is no longer a college athlete. The season is over. The spotlight has shifted. And now Blooder is finally able to explain the realities that existed behind the success. Her comments aren't about regret or criticism. They're about context. They're about explaining that greatness doesn't happen in a vacuum, that the most electric moments in sports are often supported by invisible work that fans never see. By stepping forward now, Blooder is adding depth to Caitlin Clark's legacy. She's reminding everyone that those unforgettable seasons weren't just about talent and wins. They were about leadership, sacrifice, and navigating chaos in real time.
Come on now, let's be serious. The person who got the best access to Clark during these developmental college years was Lisa Bluder, her Iowa head coach. Bluder retired from coaching after Clark's senior year in 2024, and her longtime assistant Jan Jensen took over the program, and Jan Jensen's doing a hell of a job as well. While Bluder has been seen at Iowa games and is still a part of the Midwest women's basketball scene, she occasionally does color commentary on the Big Ten Network. She has certainly been out of the spotlight more than she was as a head coach, especially during Clark's 4-year.
Wait, Caitlin Clark struggled with leadership? That's the part that stops people in their tracks. We're talking about the same player who has dragged teams to victory with sheer willpower. The same player who takes over games when everything is on the line. And yet, according to Lisa Bluder, leadership didn't come naturally to her. Bluder explained that Clark was so accustomed to handling everything herself that learning how to truly lead others was a process. Leadership isn't just about scoring or intensity. It's about empowering teammates, trusting them, and letting them share responsibility. For someone who had always been the best player on the floor, that shift didn't happen overnight. Clark had to work at it. She had to consciously develop those skills. And while she eventually mastered them at an elite level, it was a journey, not an instinct. This revelation is a major surprise because fans often assume leadership is something Clark was born with, that it flowed naturally alongside her talent. But Bluder's comments reveal a more complex, more impressive story. Clark identified a weakness, acknowledged it, and deliberately turned it into a strength. That kind of growth doesn't happen by accident. It requires self-awareness and humility, two traits that aren't always associated with superstars. And the fact that Clark developed this during one of the most isolating periods in sports history makes it even more remarkable. Rather than diminishing her legacy, this makes it stronger. It shows that her greatness wasn't just natural talent. It was earned through growth, reflection, and effort.
At one point in their discussion, Bluder was asked what was the hardest part about coaching Clark, and she said two aspects, really. First, during the panoramic, I ain't trying to say certain words, YouTube be tripping. There was nobody in the stands. It was hard to build relationships because of the isolation. To get her to become a good leader, it took time because she was so used to doing everything on her own, but she learned it, and she learned it really well. Second, at the end of her career, there was so much noise and all the people that wanted a piece of her. I'm amazed at how she handled it. She didn't get a big head. She was still a goofy kid instead of becoming a prima donna. And here she said, Bluder has expressed in the past that it took Clark some time to warm up to her Hawkeye teammates as a freshman before blossoming into a great leader. And her stance on Clark being able to block out all the noise that came during her upperclassmen years also makes sense. Several of Clark's teammates with the Indiana Fever have spoken about her goofy side, which Bluder also alluded to. It's awesome to hear that Clark has managed to...
To be clear, this critique has nothing to do with Paige Buchers as a basketball player. She is elite. UConn won a national championship in 2024, and she played a major role alongside Azzi Fudd and Aaliyah Edwards. Her resume speaks for itself. This isn't about performance. It's about priorities. What's driving these endorsement decisions isn't on-court impact, it's optics. Companies are making choices based on how they want to be perceived, not on what consumers are actually buying. They're chasing narratives crafted by media coverage rather than responding to market signals. ESPN spent 2 years aggressively promoting the Bucher's narrative. WNBA reporters amplified it. Social media echoed it. And now corporations are following that storyline instead of following the data. That's backwards business strategy. When companies stop listening to consumers and start listening only to curated narratives, they lose money. Products sit in warehouses. Retailers scale back orders. Campaigns fail quietly. And executives wonder why the numbers don't add up. The irony is that the solution is obvious. Follow demand. Follow sales. Follow engagement. Caitlin Clark's success provides a clear case study in what actually works. Until corporations realign their strategies with reality instead of optics, they'll keep throwing money out the window and pretending it's an investment.